The Nike Zoom X Alphafly Next Percent. Alpha Zoom X Nike. I think I got all of those. Version 1 is a shoe that when it came out, I was immediately skeptical of. How could a running shoe, something as simple as a piece of fabric with attached foam that you lace to your foot and put one foot in front of the other for, how could it be so expensive? Almost $300. And immediately it was marketed as the shoe that would break records in the marathon. Portrayed as the greatest marathon racing tool in the history of mankind. Now, those are very lofty expectations and goals for such a shoe. Have they been met? To be debated. But let's take a look at it from a normal person's perspective, like myself, someone who is in and around the 3-hour mark for the marathon and who is running very recreationally. Does this shoe perform? Is this shoe worth it? Now, this is a shoe I've used for a variety of different training runs, but more importantly, I've raced everywhere from the 5K distance up to the marathon. So I think it goes without saying that I have put this shoe through its paces through about 50 plus miles so far. Let's get into some of the numbers first. In my men's size 9.5, this shoe comes in at just under 8 ounces. The official website listings for Nike and for other sources say it is 8 ounces on the dot, but I have weighed this myself and it's just under 8 ounces, which isn't that big of a difference, but regardless is not exactly lightweight concerning the racers that we see regularly on the market today. The Vaporfly Next Percent version 1 and version 2 in a men's size 9.5 aren't even 7 ounces. We also have shoes from Saucony, shoes from New Balance, shoes from Adidas that are lighter than the Nike Alphafly Next Percent. And if you think about the way the shoe is marketed as the fastest distance running shoe out there or the most effective one, why is it so heavy? Well, I would say that that heaviness isn't exactly felt on foot as much as it is on paper, but we'll get to how I feel about that in a second. Outside of the weight, we have a heel height of 39 millimeters coming right in at the World Athletic Standards legal limit below 40 millimeters, down to a 35 millimeter in the forefoot for a very unusual 4 millimeter drop in the midsole. Now, I say this is unusual because typically with racers, you see anywhere from 8 to 10 millimeter drops, because naturally, if there is a bigger drop from your heel to your toe, it's going to just automatically kind of put you on your toes a little bit more. And obviously that's something most people will desire if they're trying to run fast in a race. If the shoe is a bit flatter, so to speak, from heel to toe in terms of that platform you're sitting up on, oftentimes you have to do a little bit more of the work and staying up on your toes. And I've heard as a result of this, of having to work harder to get that more palatable racing running form for running faster, people have experienced calf issues, Achilles issues, have been sore after racing. But I myself can say that I've never felt that way. And I would say I am more of a midfoot striker when it comes to running. When I get a little bit later in a race or my form gets sloppy, I might turn into a bit of a heel striker. But I have not ever had calf soreness, Achilles soreness, anything wrong with my legs after running or racing in the shoe, again, up to the marathon distance. Now, besides the midsole, the weight, we have a really interesting outsole that looks almost alien-like, and I can say has proved to be really effective when it comes to traction. We have very sparing rubber coverage in the back, but I think it's just enough. This is a similar, albeit slightly different pattern than we see in something like the Vaporfly, where we have similar rubber strips in the back, a lot of exposed midsole, but with sort of a cutout there, and then, of course, rubber coverage towards the forefoot. We also have these sort of Nike AirPods in the front. Horror stories all around the internet about people popping these when they're running, for instance, on stone, or maybe they're running through somewhere that is a construction site and a nail pierces one of these. I haven't had any trouble with the AirPods. If anything, it's been an extremely unique and fun experience to run with a shoe that has a technical feature like this, and I think it is all what it's cracked up to be. If you are consistently rolling through your stride and landing on those AirPods, you can feel the rebound, and it is a sensation in a running shoe like none other that I have experienced before. So I think that's a really fun feature in the Alphafly. Besides the midsole, the outsole, we come to the upper, which is called ATOMKNIT. It looks really rigid. People have described it as very restrictive. I would say it's more flexible than I anticipated. The way some people said these shoes were terrible for people with slightly wider feet and just straight up wide feet, I would say I'm not a wide foot shoe wearer, but I would say I'm slightly above average in terms of foot width. These feel extremely accommodating. They did not feel uncomfortable over the course of a marathon. I could have continued to run in them. It is really skinny right towards the midfoot, and when you look inside the shoe towards, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, towards where you get into that midfoot, it's so small, and you can feel it sort of gripping your midfoot. But again, I wouldn't say it's particularly a problem. We've talked numbers. Let's get into some of my likes and my dislikes when it comes to this shoe. In terms of likes, I think it performs up to what it's cracked up to be. Obviously, I myself, as someone who is shooting for a sub-3 marathon, is never going to achieve the sub-2 marathon that Kipchoge and some of these other really talented runners may be gunning for in the near and far future. But I do believe I can meet my full potential in this shoe. The energy return from a foam like Zoom X, especially when presented in a package that has so much of it. I mean, 39 millimeters in the heel, 35 millimeters in the forefoot. It is insane how much help you get in a shoe like this. And even when my form suffers a little bit towards the end of a race, I think this shoe helps a variety of different runners out in the form department and in the performance department. So I do think it performs extremely well, in large part due to that Zoom X formulation. Another one of my likes is, even though it's one of the heaviest super shoes, heaviest carbon plated racers, it does not feel heavy on foot. And I think, again, that has to do with the way this form is integrated, whether that's the geometry of the carbon plate, the inclusion of the air pods, the foam itself, whatever it might be, this shoe does not feel like it is 8 ounces, and I feel like I can run as fast in this as I can in a shoe like the Vaporfly, which is 1 to 2 ounces lighter than it. And my final like is the look. I like things that stand out a little bit. Some people think that Alphaflys are some of the ugliest shoes out there on the market, but with a variety of colorways at this point, even though the version 1 is becoming available in a sort of diminished manner at this point with the availability and release of the Alphafly version 2, I still like the version 1 more than the version 2. Now for my dislikes for this shoe, obviously the price. That's the first thing that's going to come to mind. If you buy this at full retail, which again is becoming harder to do, you can still find it at certain outlet stores. Nike still has it listed on their website, at least in the US. It's a very expensive shoe, upwards of $300. I think it retails right at $270 or $280, but as the Alphafly Next Percent 2 gets pushed into the market and sort of the mainstream sections of the shoe marketplace, in the Alphafly version 1's availability becomes more sparing, it's going to get even more expensive, because I've heard a lot of people say that they prefer this version to the version 2. So if there's a higher demand for this and a lower supply, obviously the price is going to go up like crazy. So if you're trying to save money, I wouldn't buy the Alphafly. That's why I stayed away for it for so long. I did not bite on a pair of Alphaflys until I could find it for an extremely discounted price, and I ended up getting that. There was a sort of season-ending sale at Nike for Nike members, and I ended up getting 2 pairs each respectively for only like $125. So I got these at a extreme discount, and they have been very worth it at that price. I don't know if I would feel all that differently if I would have spent full price on these shoes, but I didn't, and I feel great, and I feel like I got a steal getting 2 pairs, one that's on ice right now, and then this pair which only has a little over 50 miles on it. And besides the price, I don't think there's a lot to dislike about this. This is definitely a shoe that I think fits a wide variety of runners at a wide variety of paces. I've run my PR at the marathon in this at 3 hours and 6 minutes, and I just a couple weeks ago ran my PR in the 5K in it. So for a shoe to have that variety of range, allowing me, someone who doesn't consider themselves a very fast top-end runner, to run in the 1820s for the 5K and approach the 3-hour mark for the marathon in the same exact pair of shoes is incredible to me. So I think this shoe definitely performs up to expectations, but there is reluctance considering the price. Have you run in the Alphafly at all? Would you buy a pair of these for near full price, or would you wait for them to be discounted? Let me know down in the comments. This has easily become one of my favorite shoes in general, definitely my favorite racing shoe when it comes to every racing distance. We'll catch you next time. Peace.